We all go a little mad sometimes.
Forget you.
Here's Johnny.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is the first ever collaboration with the Horror Hour and the Council podcast. So I'm one of the hosts, Yutaka, and I'm joined with Constance.
Hello, everyone.
And Kyle.
Hey.
And so today we're going to be doing a spoiler review of James DeMonaco's This Is the Night. It stars Bobby Cannavale, Frank Grillo, Naomi Watts, and Jonah Howard King. Hope I said that right. And Lucius Hoyos. I hope I said that right. Sorry if I butchered names, not meaning to. So, all right, this takes place in 1982, and it centers around an Italian family in Staten Island. And, really surrounds Rocky III. And just the story that follows. I don't know how else to say that without diving right into spoilers in a sense. So I'll just start with first impressions. Who wants to go first on that one?
I don't mind going first.
Go for it.
So it's very nice to do this collaboration. Yutaka is very generous and to share his blessings with us. So when I got this was very fast, like, oh, we got a screener. Oh, do you want it? So I just click on it. So I don't know what this is called. I know absolutely nothing. It was so refreshing to go into something going, I know nothing. I don't even know the title. That was actually kind of fun. So first impression, when you don't know what you're looking at, it's unfolding. I'm like, okay, where are we going? And, the problem with our modern day sensibility is we're so used to big budget, big blockbuster. And obviously things that are like the MCU where it's all connected. And so you're looking for connective tissue, but you have to train yourself not to be looking for that. Like, oh, what does this mean? Is this going to be important later? Not every movie's doing that. And I would say this movie's not doing that. I don't know if either of you have seen that. It's a small indie film that was on Netflix 4 or 5 years ago called Sing Street. It's a very small, it takes place in the 80s as well, and it's about kids and they're like the underdogs. This is, if you've seen Sing Street, this is a lot like that movie. Netflix picked that one up. So yeah, it's a small indie film. It kind of presents itself as a coming of age, and it kind of is coming of age, but that's not the only thing going on in this movie. There's 3 distinct plots, but it's all wrapped up in one family.
Mm-hmm.
And I was waiting for them to dovetail. It doesn't dovetail on initial impression. I had to go away and think. And then I was like, oh, but I worry that it's just a reach. Maybe I'm trying to find how it all connects. So maybe I'm just inventing it. It's a sweet little film. Like if you like back when we had small things that they weren't about world building, and this is the 5th installment of, a 23 saga epic sweeping thing, you get so used to that, you forget that movies used to be more like this. You know what I mean? So I think for who we are now, it's hard to watch a movie like this. But I did a little research, but we can do first impressions first before I get into something that I dug up to help me figure out past my initial reaction. So initial reaction was just a lot of confusion, but it became clear the more I did a little bit of homework, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Kyle?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what Constance said. I think, again, I mean, we're so used to, especially in the setting of this movie, I think it takes place in like during the summertime, and it's like the 80s. So I was getting all kinds of like different vibes from like previous things that I've seen, especially like for some reason it's like been a trend recently to like set movies in the 80s. I mean, we've seen obviously like Wonder Woman 84, or I mean, even like Stranger Things, or what was the other movie that it reminded me of? Kind of, I forget what it's called. Scary Stories in the Dark or something. What is that called?
Oh, yes, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yeah, it kind of gave me those vibes a little bit, just with like the main like the teenage cast.
Mhm.
So yeah, there was a lot of like, it reminded me of a lot of things, but there's also, like Constance said, there's different elements to the story that kind of converge, or maybe don't converge enough, but we can talk about that. But yeah, it's very much like a slice of life kind of movie, coming of age. So yeah, I mean, it's very self-contained. And I would agree, it wasn't really, I also went into this not knowing anything about the movie. So I would agree that it was a fun experience to just go in not knowing anything and being completely surprised by what I saw. Whether or not that's, I had a good time.
I know where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I would agree. The only thing I knew about this, honestly, was the press release when they had sent that the screener information. I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting because one, I miss the 80s since I do remember growing up, and I mean, granted, this was 82, so I was not born at that moment. But I liked the fact that the portion or that where they were going with was centered around movies, cinema, this huge event in terms of not only for the family, but which was interesting was the city or the town. I thought that was very unique, and also how I would say how they really just all went in terms of, I can't remember the last time that people would actually, in sense, line up to buy tickets, all that. So there were certain things in terms of just going in, seeing what unfolded, sometimes good, sometimes I was lost a little bit. And even so at the end, but I really enjoyed the cast. I think there was some really good performances. I enjoyed certain aspects of the story because, again, I didn't know what I was going into, so that's kind of nice, and that's refreshing. I think, kind of like, I think you did hate this film. I can't remember, but I'll say *Malignant* only because it's refreshing because I didn't see that twist. I know you didn't, but I did. I really liked it. It was for what he was going for. That's what I enjoyed. So again, that's kind of this. I was just kind of going in blind, and I enjoyed that. So I liked the tale, and yeah, I think before we go into spoilers, I would just say it was just nice to see something I don't know, new in a sense, even though it was nostalgic. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, and I would just to build off of that, because you were talking about the cast a little bit. I would say one of my biggest takeaways was Jonah Howard King's performance. I guess he's going to be our new Prince Eric in the Little Mermaid movie that's coming out with Halle Bailey. So I'm excited to see that, because I think this is the first thing I've seen him in. So after seeing this, I feel a lot better about that casting, because I think he did a good job here.
I was not expecting that performance, and I think this is the first time I've actually seen him in a film, and I thought he did a great job. Yeah, so I'm kind of excited to actually. I mean, I was already excited for Halle Bailey because I just love Chloe and Halle, so I already know that's going to be great things. But it was, if this was my first introduction to him, and I think he did a great job in the role. So.
Agreed.
Guess we'll just go right into spoilers. Pretty much, and with spoilers, I'll just say, the things that I enjoyed about the film. I really loved just the beginning, or the first act, in terms of, I remember being that kid being super excited about getting the paper and seeing, we already knew what the movie was going to be that weekend, looking for movie times and planning it all out, and either going with your friends or going with your family. And it actually reminded me not so much of our normal theaters, but it reminded me of what we have here as like a dollar theater. And so it would get movies maybe kind of between that I think it was like the 15-day window from, okay, it's no longer new, but it's not ready to go on video. And so it would get those, and that's why it would be $1. But there wasn't advanced sales. It was only one screen, and you would just show up, and same thing, it'd be a huge line. And then when you'd go in, it was just kind of like that theater when they went in, and you just see everybody, and it's huge, just big event. And I really love that. And so that nostalgia is part of why I really, going into the first act, I really enjoyed it. I will say a bit of a gripe though. This I will. When it kept kind of cutting in aspects of the movie reel, that kind of took me out of it. That's just me. I get where they were going, and to try and keep the whole Rocky 3 theme, but that kind of, for me, I was like, you're breaking up what I'm invested. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, and suddenly we're going to use this to cut away. I was like, huh. Well, now I'm sitting back. Okay, all right. So trying to be, again, I still think this is a good film, but that's just, something that they used to cut the story that I just wasn't a fan of.
Interesting. I didn't notice that. Something I looked up. So I watched the movie not knowing anything, and I was confused. And so I just went back to what I was taught about film review. It's like, okay, how do you review a film? You need to understand the filmmaker's intent, right? So I did some digging. The only thing I could find on this movie was what the filmmaker wanted to do. He said this is a passion project he's been sitting on for a while, and he wanted to do this. It's based on his hometown, and you get that vibe. So I agree with your assessment of, I'm from the 80s as well, so I remember that. I remember waiting in line, and you were nervous and you look at all the people in front of you, you're like, okay, there's 10 people. If they all get this many, we're going to miss our cut. So, kind of like how back in the day we had Blockbuster Video, and every Friday new movies would come out, and you would run into the store, and you would hope that you would come back the next day, because they had a little counter where people who watched it and returned it, you'd sit there hoping to get the first one that comes back. Yes. I remember being like, ooh, when am I going to get, so it really hit those notes really hard. And that guy, the theater owner, who's like, I have rules. You don't get this. You're not getting it. He felt like a real person.
I liked his character, actually.
Yeah.
So this guy's passion project, I'm like, I bet you he wrote people that he knew down. Those felt like real people. I felt like you could go anywhere, and like the lady on the bus who was yelling at the kids. I'm like, that feels like so from that perspective, I think atmosphere wise, this is a good movie, because it feels like a real place with real people. It's another breather from, oh, it's not a sky beam, or, oh no, aliens are attacking, we don't need that all the time. It's actually nice to have just like, oh my God, all they have to worry about is getting tickets to this movie, and then getting to this party, because we haven't touched on the big catalyst for this movie. So it's about a bunch of teenage boys who are picked on. This is one movie trope that they do that I hate. It's funny that they open at a pool party, and there's a bully who makes fun of them. And so he gets the whole party to be chanting like, oh yeah, Shirty. I'm like, that doesn't happen in real life.
No.
I was bullied as a child, and it was a private thing. Like, if I had a bully, it was between me and them, and they made sure no one could see us so that they could torment me and make me feel like
that's actually
I can't ask for help, because then they'll beat me up or something. It's not this big public display where they get everyone involved, So I hated that. But the bully really hates the one kid because he's crushing on his girl. In a way, this is also a love story. So there's this weird other plot of everyone finds out that they think he's the one who said that Rocky's a pussy. So everyone knows, and everyone's chasing him. They're like, how dare you? I'm like, what?
Which I thought it was so ridiculous that because he shouts Rocky's a pussy, and then he shouts immediately after that, oh, it was Tony that said that, in the same voice, which I thought was funny.
Right.
That really bothered me. I was like, come on, who's gonna buy that? Also, who cares?
Well, I will say, I kind of could see that because if you think of,
It was
you know,
definitely elevated, I would say. I'm sure, yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
but Staten Island, Italians, Rocky, and I kind of like me thinking about, sitting here in, the Midwest, I'm like, we wouldn't care. But I think there, yes, that would be a huge deal. Sure. It was interesting though, like as you called that old lady yelling at them, that made me laugh. I'm like, really? Okay, all right. But I mean, it got a chuckle out of me. It was humorous. I just was not expecting her to say certain words and want to like beat down on this kid. So I was
Right.
like, okay.
Right.
I don't know if you
So
meant it to be like that, but
I was like, okay. And I have only seen Rocky 1. My first confusion was they make it sound like Rocky is so important. I'm like, but I haven't seen Rocky 3. Do you have to see Rocky 3 to appreciate this movie? So I just did a little research on like, okay, what is that movie basically about and how is it different from the other ones? And I'm like, okay, maybe this is a reach. You guys can tell me if you think this is a reach. So my perception of Rocky as a franchise, he's supposed to be this guy who came from nothing. And by Rocky 3, he's something, but he loses it all. And it's about him getting it back.
mm-hmm.
It kind of mirrors what's going on with them. So these are kids who they're losers, we use that term lightly, because just this one kid doesn't like them. So they have to overcome that. And also there's commentary on the dad could be a loser because he has his own bully. And so both the son and the father are dealing with someone who's preying on them. And so maybe they're supposed to be like Rocky. They're having their own moment of overcoming some sort of obstacle. And then, so the third plot is there's another son who's older and he's dealing with like, he's having like an identity crisis. I don't know what to call it. I don't want to misuse terms.
I would say he's just, he's in that, he's just discovering himself. I mean, it would be your sexual identity. He wasn't sure what's going on, to be honest.
Right. Well, I bring that up because I want to be clear. Just because you're cross-dressing doesn't make you gay. I know lots of men who dress up like women, but they still sleep with women. It's not about who they sleep with. It's about how they see themselves and what they think their true selves are. So I don't want to just come out and say, oh yeah, and then the son is gay. That may not be the right term. He just might be transsexual or maybe he just likes to wear women's clothes. That doesn't mean anything. It may not be sexually based at all. Who knows? It's so open-ended and they have a confrontation, oh no, the parents are going to find out. No, they're going to have the talk, but they don't really. They kind of do, but they don't.
Right.
So
yeah, I had a bit of a gripe with that. Was like the mom finding his or knew that I guess he had that stuff hidden away. That was very bizarre to me. And the way she wanted to try and approach that. But I will say, okay, maybe that did seem authentic, how she was trying to approach her son, but it was just very bizarre that it was just like you get that first hint with the mailman,
right,
which obviously that later came in, but that was just, I don't know, again, the movie may have been overcrowded, but I still enjoyed that storyline, even if it was a bit messy. But I think that's where we got to see some of their best performances, though.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that storyline of Jonah Howard King's storyline with his mother, Naomi Watts, I thought that was easily one of the strongest parts of the movie. And again, I also don't, I was also kind of confused with what they were trying to get across, because also, I don't know, again, because I also don't know like how accurate of a portrayal that is too, or whether or not, because I thought it was weird when they were having the conversation. Again, I think that their performances were really good. I think I would just I think I would just like a little more from the script, I guess, because they didn't really, like, they were trying to explore what was going on with him, but there was also like these, like the A plot that was going on, and then like the thing with his dad. So there was like, I feel like this was just like 2 or 3 movies combined. um it was
I
weird,
could see
but
that.
when he was talking to his mom, they were having a conversation, and he said something like, so how long have you known? And I thought she was gonna say that, like, oh, I found this in, she was gonna confess that she found this in his
Mhm.
room or whatever, but instead she says, I guess I've always known. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, do you always know that he's been into like drag, or that he's always been gay? Or like, I don't know how authentic that situation is, because I wasn't sure exactly what they were getting at. I think they were trying to do a few different things, and it just kind of, I don't know. I don't think I wasn't really satisfied, I guess, with um, kind of how it turned out. I mean, I did. There was a conversation afterward where they're like driving home, and he decides to go pick up their dad, the way that he was dressed, and like when he said that, I was like, ooh, like I started to get nervous for him, and then they had like they started fighting basically, and like tonally the movie goes like up and down, and there's like these really light moments, and then it gets like really heavy. um so yeah, I think there's like so many different like things, like they're trying. I felt like at the end, I kind of wish that things tied together more than they did.
Mhm.
Like after that whole confrontation with the dad, and Naomi Watts kind of saying, you're gonna say yes now because that's the
Yeah.
man I married. I kind of wish like after that too, that like there was a moment between the two brothers, because they were basically the two main characters in the movie, that would, there would be some kind of like reconciliation there too, or some kind of understanding. But no, we didn't, like, we didn't get that. So again, I think the script is like very all over the place, in my opinion.
It certainly, I would say that part, I would say definitely most for me missed the mark, because I felt while I enjoyed the journey for the most part, I left thinking it wasn't truly resolved. They just,
Right.
you guys, I mean, I liked the confrontation and that blow up, um, because I kind of, I could see that. Like, okay, yeah, all right. But then I wanted to see, well, what's the end result? Because it just doesn't stop right there, even though, again, the movie kind of pretty much does. But I was just like, you guys were just getting right there in terms of just at least closing something, like wrapping something up in terms of story. Because even, Tony, yeah, he got to have his kiss. It was great, but then suddenly the party, gets broken up, uh, gunshots, and oh my god! And I was just like, what? Oh gosh, guys, there's just so much. And I mean, I guess that's why it was, almost a 3-hour movie, because they were, they put in a lot of stuff, and I think if it were, if you could have taken out an hour, and I know obviously the writer director probably didn't want to do that because it was, this is something he wanted to make, and I applaud Blumhouse for actually letting him do it. It's, his departure film from that production company, and from what it sounds like, it's something he's been wanting to make for quite some time. So I think that's probably part of why maybe so much was left in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. It does. It has a lot going on, and it's like, okay, did you really have ideas for a couple movies, and you were like, this is my one shot? So if I never get, it's kind of like when you're making a TV show, you don't know how long the network's going to keep you. So you have that magical dance of how much do we put in season 1 and how much do we save? It's like, oh no, we only get one more, quick, shove it all in there. I don't know if some of that psychology is going
That's
on.
exactly how it felt. Yeah, that's such
Yeah.
a good, yeah.
So the individual pieces are good, but putting them together in this manner structurally is what's going on. That
Yeah.
makes you go, well, oh, I thought we were going here, now we're going over here. why? I liked it over there. Why'd we leave?
Right.
So structure is the problem, really, not individual pieces. I think on their own they're fine. Like that confrontation with Naomi Watts' character, I felt that. I've been married for 12 years, and not that we've had a moment like that, but even my own husband and I have had like, we don't mean to change, but you do change, and you have those talks along the lines of like, but this is who I married. We're not using those words, but we're using something kind of to the same effect of like, you used to be like this. Where'd that go? And like, we're both guilty of that. It's like, oh yeah, I used to be better than that. What happened? Like, so you have to work on it and try to come back. So that felt like a really real moment. I was like, oh yeah, anyone who's been married for a while kind of goes, oh yeah, that's kind of true. It's dramatic. We have a quieter version of that, but so that felt like a real moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I did like that was sprinkled throughout the film, where there were moments of authenticity that I was like, yeah, I could actually see that happening, and that seems realistic, and I like the approach they're taking. But that bus scene still sticks out to me. It was comical. I enjoyed it, but I was just like, it seemed very out of place, almost to the point of where it felt like it was going for a different genre. Like, yeah. I thought that was it just seemed like, I don't even know how to explain that. It just seemed like we were gonna go like this zany comedy, which I don't think it was going for.
But that's a good point, because there's parts of this movie, especially that story, like Tony's storyline trying to get to the Sweet 16 or whatever, and even them getting on the bus and then getting kicked off or whatever, it reminded me of, and I don't know if I just like try to relate this movie to everything because it's my favorite movie, but Superbad, which is basically the same story. The same story as they're trying to get to this party at the end of the night, and they run into all these obstacles, and that's a scene in the movie too where they get on the bus with like these gallons of booze, and then this homeless man starts yelling at them, and he gets them kicked off the bus. So yeah, again, I feel like tonally, this movie is just up and down and very way down, and then it goes like really way like almost comedic. So yeah, I just wanted to say that it did give me those vibes. I definitely thought of that while watching the movie.
I like that reference. I could actually now see that. That's really funny. I think that's where I was kind of going in terms of I thought we were going at a certain point to that type of movie, but then as you said, there were just those moments that would then bring it right back down, which is, again, it's fine. It was just, that was just a roller coaster of just emotions in a sense.
What did we think about the Frank Grillo and the Bobby Cannavale?
Oh God, we're butchering that. Who knows? I'm so sorry.
I've been watching him on 9 Perfect Strangers on Hulu, so it's very interesting to see the different characters.
He's a really good actor, and he plays just a wide range of, I'm actually enjoying him in 9 Perfect Strangers, but then I see this, and then I freaking love him in the movie Spy, which is just, this completely different style. But I actually liked that relationship between him and Frank. I wouldn't say relationship, but that rivalry, I really liked it. And I actually did like that, the correlation to, Rocky 3, when they got to that, fist fight. I was like, all right, like, that's kind of cool. As Constance, you had mentioned, everybody was kind of trying to have their, that moment to where they were the underdog, and now they're back on top. So I liked it.
And also, again, maybe I'm reaching, maybe I've been conditioned to go, you have to look for the connections. They're there. Maybe they're not there. And this is all imaginary, but I'm looking at the dad, and I'm looking at his son, Tony. And I'm like, isn't it funny how they both have a bully, and it's all over a girl? Of course it is. It's over a girl, because they kept finding like, well, she picked me, and so they start wailing on each other. And of course, Tony's trying to get to the girl he's crushed. It's her part, I'm like, it's funny how their life is really parallel, especially as a teenager, because when you're a teen, you're like, oh, my parents don't get me. It's like, you're actually a lot more like your parents than you want to admit. You know, we're all guilty of that. You have those moments where you're like, oh my God, I was my mom right there or something. So I just saw a lot of that too. Again, maybe this is a reach, maybe that's not really there and I just have blinders on. But did you guys notice that kind of stuff too?
Oh, totally.
Or do you notice it now as I say it?
No, yeah, I agree. I think I also have not seen, if I have seen Rocky 3, it's been a very long time and I don't recall a lot of it, so I don't remember the story, but yeah, I think Utaka and I were talking about after I watched it, and he did say that too, how everybody kind of has their own Rocky 3 moment in a way, which I thought was good. I just wish it was, again, I wish there was like that connectivity. I wish there was just a little more where these storylines converged and it felt like more organic than it did.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean, I still really enjoyed it. I think when it comes to recommending it, I think it, you know, I'd have to look at who I'm recommending it to, because I do think this is definitely has a certain audience that it's going for. I don't know if this would be more mainstream, as again, I think the writer, this feels like his story. I think I would recommend this to those who enjoy nostalgia and of the old days of when it was about going to the cinema, when there used to be that big event that you know, you get the whole city talking, the whole town, you know, you'd see so many people there. It, you know, the next day they'd be talking about, in this case, that evening, it's still on everybody's mind, because again, Rocky's a pussy. So that's all anybody could remember or think about. But there's just something to be said for that. And I think that, you know, there's a certain crowd that would really appreciate this. And I think, again, with some of the acting choices and then other aspects of the film, I do think, you know, certain people would enjoy it. I'm still happy I watched it.
Yeah, I would say maybe this is a good family, maybe for like a family to go and see. Again, this is I mean, at the end of the day, this is about a family. And obviously they're dealing with very specific issues. So again, I don't think it's for everybody, but I'm wondering if this is like something that like the whole family can go and see, or it's hard to determine that, but I might say that, you know.
I'm trying to see what it was rated.
Well, sure, a family with teenagers, because they make countless movies for young children. I'm like, right, but what happens when your kids get too old for that sort of thing, but they're not all the way adults yet? You know, in terms of recommending it, my advice always, when people, because I love movies so much more than a lot of the people that are around me, I'm like, you should just know what you're getting into. Like, if your time is valuable and you're like, I only have so many hours to give to, I can't watch no one can watch everything. And if you're very persnickety about what you watch, I'm like, well, we'll try to describe it the best we can and just see if that's for you. This is what's so great about having different kinds of movies. That way you spend the time on the types of movies that you like, but don't be afraid to try something new, because we should applaud this. Like Utaka said, it's nice that Blumhouse got behind this. It wasn't very expensive. I do think it was only 10 million, if I remember from my research. So it wasn't a big risk. It's a passion project. We do want to encourage future passion projects, because that's the breeding ground for finding the next greatest thing. You know, you got to let people do this first. So if you love cinema, you should watch things like this just to be supportive. Seek things like this out. Well, like I mentioned Sing Street earlier, and neither of you said you saw that. So it's similar.
That's fair.
You know, because there's just so many out there. So look at things, look at descriptions to see like, oh, I want to branch out, but I want to make sure I still branch out in an area that speaks to me. So I think just know what you're getting into, but look for smaller projects, because you'd be surprised. It might look lame, but then you actually watch it and you go, hey, I really like that. Now I want to find more. So that's how they get a name for themselves. So just, that's what I would say from the recommendation standpoint.
I mean, honestly, when again, I think it's very fortunate that we were given a screener, to be honest. And then again, since I typically discuss horror, you know, at first reading just the description and the press release, I was like, okay, this to me, I was like, I really like the idea of this. This is already taking me back. And so again, I think maybe that was still partially part of it. So yeah, I think I feel bad because it's, you know, it's getting a limited engagement. It comes out this Friday. An A theater in New York for a 1-week engagement, and then it goes to PVOD on September 21st. So I think that's unfortunate. You know,
But you know
But that's
what?
not unique. That's
Yeah.
not
No,
unique,
it
though.
isn't.
That happens. Yeah. This is
But
an
you know
indie
what?
film. We didn't really say
Yeah.
that verbiage. I'm like, oh, this is very much an indie.
Oh yeah,
drama.
absolutely. I think
Let's be
this would
clear about that.
I guess for me, I look at it as like, this would really excel though, I think, on streaming. You know.
Yeah, I mean, but also to the point of it being an indie film, I think that, you know, I guess, I mean, I'm sure it would be great if it was like a wide release and a lot of people went and saw it. But you know, we've been talking about how this is a passion project, and I mean, I'm in film school and I'm like writing scripts and stuff. So just to like be able to make something that you like are truly passionate about and like put it out there, depending on how many people see it or not. I think that's what it's like really about, you know, like just to finally be able to make what you want to make, and if people want to see it, then they can, and if not, then you still have that for yourself. So I think that in itself is a win for the
Yeah,
filmmaker.
I think that's actually a great way to put it. And again, I think the performances were strong, and so there's still I think there are more positives than negatives. And again, I think I will say this past year it doesn't feel like we've had a lot of movies come out, so this was nice to watch. I do appreciate that. And I think, like you said, I think that's great that he got to make this, that Blumhouse got behind it. He got some pretty big name actors, you know. So I think that's really amazing, and I'm excited to see what he does next. All right.
It's fine. All right. Bye.
That's the best
You have been listening to the Horror Hour. See you next time.